Most companies have a GTM strategy, but very few have a GTM that actually gets the money. If your go-to-market feels like a series of broken spreadsheets and missed targets, it's time for a system update. Welcome to GTM, get the money live. I'm Chris Ryan and I'm Lee Parillo, your host, and we're here to install the operating system for your revenue. We're moving past the theory and getting into the high-stakes execution of what it takes to scale in 2020 fast.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, this is important. We're solving one of the quietest killers of high-growth companies. How leaders navigate extreme uncertainty, advocate for their vision when advisors give up, and stay calm under pressure. Welcome out to GTM. Get the money. I'm very excited to introduce my guest, Erin Mark. Erin's a different kind of guest, and you'll see why. Erin overcame a fatal illness. She survived end-stage disease and refused to let authority figures dictate her limits, which is what the majority of the show is about. She's a motivational keynote speaker and has a world-renowned TED Talk. Much more experience than I am. Erin, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're the first person to do a woo, so that's awesome.
All right, that's exciting.
Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So I was born, as you mentioned, with a terminal illness called cystic fibrosis. When I was born, doctors told my parents that I wouldn't live past 18. And I found that out early on because I overheard my dad on the phone one night quietly saying my life expectancy out loud. And I was 5 years old.
Wow.
That really set me on this trajectory to cram as much joy and urgency into my life as possible. And I could count backwards, of course, at 5. Very smart child from 18 to 5. You could count a little bit backwards. And the next day, Make-A-Wish came to my house. So it was this full circle moment where people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was a grown-up. And it just set me on this path of how much impact can I have for the time that I still get to be here.
And that's what your TED Talk is all about, because I've watched it several times, and it's very, very good. And I haven't seen you on a keynote yet, but it's moving, to say the least. And I met you at a networking event, a grand opening or something, and I was inspired by your story. And for the people that haven't tuned into this show is all about helping leaders generate revenue for the business, but revenue for good. So what that means is if we solve the revenue problem for leaders, typically any good leader will give back to those around them. Yeah. So I want to be able to tie your story to this. And I think there are some parallels, albeit I don't want to demean anything that you've gone through your journey. Yeah. So the struggle of having limitations and going day by day at I can't imagine being a 5-year-old. Yeah. Well, I can't imagine the journey your parents went on.
Yeah.
When businesses go through struggles and they get to this existential crisis, again, I don't want to compare this and make this anywhere the same.
The emotions are the same, though. You don't have to go through what I have went through to recognize that emotion that businesses and humans have.
And you speak to mostly business owners and leaders. So when you're a keynote speaker, is that what you're talking about? You talk about your journey and then you tie it to their day-to-day? Like, walk me through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I go into a company, organization, association, I find that a lot of them are dealing with so much uncertainty and change. I mean, uncertainty is one of the biggest stressors we all deal with, and it's causing so much burnout. What I've realized is uncertainty really isn't the problem, though. It's the attention that we give to uncertainty. And that's taking away from what we can really better pay attention to, serving our overall mission, our customers, our patients, and whatever business I'm into. The thing I think that ties my story into a company story is that it's getting back to basics of how we can improve our bottom line and also the good of our people. And it started with a simple framework that really helped me thrive through uncertainty my whole life that I call CALM. And that's 4 key principles that stand for control what you can, adapt, lean on others, and move forward.
Gotcha. So this is the principle that's the driving force to help companies overcome.
Yeah.
So if CEOs are out there, obviously hopefully not dealing with a life-threatening illness, but you could be dealing with an existential problem where a framework like Calm will come in.
Yeah.
So when you deliver the Calm framework in your keynote speech, are you going through and explaining what it is, or are you just kind of giving them the gist of it? Like, how does that work from like the audience perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So I set up my story about giving a little background on myself. And I also, I'm able to talk plainly and simply to them and tell them that I've also struggled. I think what happens is a lot of times these motivational speakers get on stage and they're like, don't give up, have grit. And everybody is going to have those moments of frustration. I want everyone to practice a realistic resilience. So I tell a story where, and this is how I set up my keynote. When I entered end life stage in 2019 and I was dying, I was holding grief in one hand and gratitude in the other. Grief, of course, because I didn't want to go, but gratitude because it was a miracle I got to live all those extra years. And at the very last moment, as I was slipping away, a breakthrough drug was approved that saved my life. But what happened next really threw me off because it was relief and confusion. So I was preparing to wrap things up, and suddenly I needed a 401k, like a LinkedIn strategy, like SPF in my moisturizer. And I was like, you people been living like this your whole life? This is stressful. But what I realized is everything I needed to live in the next phase of my life, to really live, I had already learned while dying. Because I think struggle has a way of teaching us things that comfort never does. And that's true not only in life, but in business. And that's where Calm was built, not just as an emotion, but as 4 key principles. So what I do is I take them through each of those principles that I mentioned for each part of Calm and how they can apply it to their business, their life. And I can walk you through a couple of those examples if you want as well.
Well, I want to talk about the struggle a little bit, because I think you're telling a nice story of it, although I can't imagine there's a dry eye in the audience when you tell this the first time. But the struggle is what I think, and you don't have to take my word for it, but that's what I think makes a good leader. I think when you go through the depths of despair, the depths of financial problems, this is why entrepreneurs are up every hour of every night, and leadership teams struggle. And the clarity, like you said, and releases that emotion and helps them, start to grow their business in the right way. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to send my kids to college or that. So when you're talking to the frameworks, is there the C, the A, the L, or the M more important, or do you do them in order?
Okay, I do them in order, but I have to tell you, I truly believe the L is the dark horse. That's the most important, because I don't think it's what leaders naturally do or entrepreneurs.
What's the L again?
Lean on others.
Lean on others.
It's hard to ask for help. And I think you've gotten to be that entrepreneur or leader because a lot of times maybe you're one person and you don't want to bother somebody and ask for help. You want to be able to help others. But sometimes I think it's hard for us to ask for help, including myself.
There's entire organizations that are birthed out of that plan. Like EO is a great one. We had Dr. Manny Astruck on here, and all he talks about is burnout, and he talks about that specific thing, saying if you don't ask for help, and if you cannot, lean on others, it's not. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
No.
I understand, like you don't want to burden your partner, maybe, and that's like you don't want to create uncertainty in your family because you're the breadwinner, whatever the scenario is. But still, it's hard to lean on even your staff. Like I think about it from my perspective, things aren't going well. It's hard for me to have a conversation with them saying, guys, like we need to pick things up or things are going to have to change. Like that is like, you feel like a failure, I think, as a leader. Yeah. Is that something that you hear a lot of, or am I just crazy?
No, you are not crazy. So do not worry.
Okay, thanks.
But I think what maybe that you or others might forget is human beings are wired to look to others in stressful situations. So I always give an example. I'll ask, like, who here hates turbulence? It's a dumb question. Everybody hates turbulence. But think of the first thing we do when turbulence hits. Like, what's one of the first things you do when turbulence hits?
Grab the person next to you.
Grab the person next to you. I look at the flight attendant. Are they calm? Are they still serving pretzels or cocktails? But if you notice, if we look to that person next to us and they're calm, relaxed, scrolling on their phone, sipping their drink, something in us kind of relaxes. And that's called co-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is before we ever look to calm ourselves, we look to someone else's nervous system to borrow stability from. We scan for cues. Is this survivable? Am I safe? Does someone else know how to navigate this? And I think what happens is we assume if help is nearby biologically, things will be easier. Seems kind of obvious, right? And if it's not, things will be harder. And if we don't ask for help, how are we going to break through those beliefs to move not only us forward, but our teams forward?
For sure. And co-regulation is actually a hot topic on my Instagram lately.
No, is it really?
Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because I have a
it.
2-year-old, almost 3. And all I do is follow like child psychologists at this point.
Okay.
And they're like, your behavior is a direct flow.
Mimic.
So it's really hard for me to be like, okay, she's drilling me in the face and doing all the
Right.
really cute things. But it's something that it's learned behavior. It's not built in me. So,
Yeah.
but it's good. I've never heard it like co-regulation in adult. Again, I'm new to this, ladies and gentlemen. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, just side note.
That is just side note, but it's also social buffering, right? That's the whole part of looking to others as well for that help. And I didn't know these were terms when I was going through some of the hardest seasons of my life. So I'll give you an example. I had over 40 plus PICC lines. Do you know what a PICC line is?
No.
Okay, just in case your audience don't. So it's basically a long-term IV that's threaded from your arm into your heart. And I've had over 40 plus PICC lines. By the maybe 35th one, my arms were shot.
Yeah.
And I would be wheeled in to IR, which is just radiology. And I could always tell by the look on the nurse's face, it's like, ooh, this is going to be a rough and tough insertion. I would look like I would left an episode of The Pit, like when I would leave, or, a terrible Dateline NBC episode when I leave these rooms. But I was immediately looking for cues from the folks in the room to say, we got this. It's going to be okay, right? And I think we've all been in our own version of that radiology room. It could be a tense staff meeting where a leader is actually saying, hey, our budgets are getting cut. We're going to have to drive more revenue this month in order to make payroll, right? Sometimes, as you mentioned, those tough conversations have to happen. And before anybody realizes it, they're looking around the room to see who looks calm, who looks stressed, or it's like, well, this isn't his first rodeo, right? He will know how to handle this. And I think that also feeds into leaning on others because we are constantly regulating each other and each other's emotions.
But so I agree with you that does train leaning on others, but does it also train the opposite for the CEO? If the CEO knows I need to go in here with a strong face and then deliver this bad information, is that part of the default of them having to I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but having them to see overly confident to know they can get through it when maybe deep down they might not think they can get through that?
Well, I think you have to be honest with your staff to a point.
Sure.
You don't want to cause panic, of course, but I think that you want to create clarity and not confusion. And I think it's about being able to practice that within yourself and leaning, maybe not necessarily on your employees if you're a leader, but I bet you have other friends, acquaintances, relationships who are also leaders, which is why groups like EO that you mentioned are so important because you can be transparent and talk about your struggles with others. And that makes you a better leader. And I also think it's like top-down leadership. If the leader or manager of a team is being clear and concise but also supportive, it's going to be a ripple effect for the team and how they interact and collaborate with each other.
Well, it's the difference between culture and toxic culture, for sure. And you see that, and you see the organizations where they blame other people as opposed to having some level of accountability.
Yes. Yeah.
Not many, just a couple.
We're not
there.
mentioning, certain ones.
I'd be happy to mention some names later. So,
do you have like an After Dark, basically, episode of this podcast?
Yes, later.
Okay, later. All right.
It's a new podcast. We're only 26 episodes, but we'll start that today.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's culture, it's perspective. It's perception. I like just your overall vibe because you went through probably the worst thing anybody could go through.
Yeah.
You don't seem like that. Like you're very happy. You're very optimistic. Like you're very joyful. Like, so how does one do that? Because you said your birthday was yesterday. So
it
happy
was,
birthday.
yes.
So birthdays must mean something different to you, I'm guessing.
They do.
Right. It's not just another year around the sun. It is like, I'm on this planet, we're pushing forward, and then when you didn't expect to be here.
Yeah.
So is that a different, I don't want to say, is that a different feeling?
Mm-hmm.
But that extra lease on life has created some uncertainty, and you've mastered that uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I'm going with this. It just, the birthday seems to be a pivotal day. And I think maybe, how do we equate that to business?
When I was dying, one of the most important questions that I asked myself, if I wasn't guaranteed another 24 hours, what can I pay the most attention to every hour that I still get to have on this earth? I know it sounds so basic, but I think sometimes with leadership, we get so obsessed with, what's Q2, Q3, Q4 going to look like, where the decisions you make today in the next 24 hours will dictate, the next quarter, the next year, and what you're trying to build. And I think that has to be a practice every single day. Now, I don't know if this makes sense, but I'll just tell you a quick story about how we can kind of set the day up for success. Like, think to yourself as a leader, like, how can I start from a place of winning instead of losing every day? So on one of my sickest nights, when I wasn't sure if I would make it to morning, I was 79 pounds on oxygen, and I was so fragile. And I was on these around-the-clock IV antibiotics. So I would set alarms on my phone just to remind me if I could try to muster the strength to have a little cracker to settle my stomach before the next IV. And I noticed at one of those rounds, I could change the label on the name of my iPhone alarm. So I changed it to 4 words. You woke up today. It was a reminder for me that if I got to wake up, I may get to live another 24 hours. What could I pay attention to in those 24 hours? Because I wanted to make them count. It became a promise, no matter how uncertain my future felt, that I wouldn't waste a day. And I say this story and tell this story. I have audiences actually rename their alarm. They can make it a goal, a quote, a reminder, really anything that pulls them forward before their feet ever hit the floor. Because what sets us up for the first minute we wake up is something called priming, right? Have you heard of priming and whatnot? It can set the tone and the direction of the day. And perhaps when you have all that responsibilities, tying it back in as a business owner, you are paying people, right, who are relying on you, your health insurance. That's a lot of stress. But if you are not focused on the next hour of how you can become a better leader, a better person, but also give yourself grace, then you're starting from a place of loss and not win. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Every reason we start a business for, like our why, our mission, we're going to change the world, whatever those are, those aspirational goals, those get lost in the day-to-day. And I think a lot of the business advice out here, and you've heard it on the show too, is when you are afforded the amount of time, just make the small iterations. Just keep pushing toward the goal. I love this carpe diem kind of wake up and what is it, priming? Is that what it's called?
Priming, yeah. And it's not just motivational fluff, right? Because, while I always say people remember stories and not data, I have over 2,000 alarms that people have messaged me, took a screenshot of what they changed their alarms to. It's fascinating. And I'm always curious of what's their why. And I put the alarms into a spreadsheet because I wanted to see, is there like a theme? Like,
I love
people,
this.
right? I don't know. First of all, by the way, I hate spreadsheets. Like, it is my nightmare. My husband loves data. I think it's a nightmare. Fall asleep. But any public speaking also is his nightmare. That's kind of funny, right? But I was like, well, let me see what these alarms. I'd love to see just the pattern. So I looked, and do you have a guess? Do you want to take a guess? Like, what is the most common alarm that I have seen?
The most common alarm that people
understand.
I woke up happy today.
Okay. So I will say, all right, some are funny, like get your out of bed, right? All this stuff. But the most common is you are enough.
Oh.
And I think that says something. And this is men and women who have sent me, you are enough. Some are who they're doing it for. Like, do it for mom or do it for their son or daughter's name. Some are, they would still want you to be here. I don't know what that means, right? What was going on in their head. Some are, I will beat cancer. You don't know sometimes what your employees are going through, and your employees don't know what you are going through as a leader. And what that told me of those alarms from me telling just a simple story that was such a pivotal point in my life that I didn't think I would ever get to tell because I didn't think I was going to be here. To see that from all of these audiences, it brings us back to be humans and not just leaders and not just employees. That on a surface level, we just have to do the best we can in the next 24 hours so we can make it to the next 24 hours and still be successful.
It's about moments. And I think Elon Musk, love him or hate him, but that's what he's a master at, is is minimizing and maximizing his day so it's effective. That's interesting. And I like the positivity. You know what's funny? It's like maybe this is just the content aside from the child psychologists I follow. But a lot of like the gym guys and the Jockos of the world and David Goggins, they're like, tell yourself something bad.
Burn the boats.
Good. It's to me, it's motivational, but I'm wondering if it's setting a bad precedent for if I was like, you know what? You're going to be strong today, even though I don't feel strong if it's 4 a.m. So, all right. I got to think of one now.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
all right.
I want to use you are enough because I don't want to be like everybody else.
You can borrow mine. You woke up today as a placeholder.
Yes. Well, I feel like that's a lesson. In all honesty, that's a lesson that most of us don't learn until later in life, because when there's an end goal and when there's an end date, and you hear this from Gary Vee all the time. He's like, go into a nursing home. And he's like, see the conversations you have. And he's like, then life becomes a reality, because we all think we have unlimited time and all of these. So, all right. Yeah. How many? So I feel like we could start a t-shirt business or like an alarm business.
I thought of doing a coffee mug that says you woke up today. Maybe I should start that.
Just a whole promotional business.
Tattoos. Let's go. Let's get Okay, so on your episode 100, we'll get matching tattoos.
Okay, we're going to get tattoos.
Okay, perfect.
You are enough. Hopefully I spell it right. That'll be important. So I want to go back to your TED Talk because your TED Talk is rock star. And I can see why companies hire you for keynotes. But like this was a shocking point to me.
Yeah.
And you tell me if this was the pivotal moment that caused you to change and just say, enough is enough.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to try to quote this, but you correct me. One of your doctors said, you should feel lucky for all the extra years you've had when you came in with research and you were saying, what else could we do? I want to live and I want to survive. And the expert was telling you, I'm the expert. You need to listen to me and be thankful that you're still here. Yep. So I would have reacted in one way. I know that. Your reaction was much different. Can you help us understand that? Yes,
absolutely. So that was in 2017. My lungs started to fail very fast. And every day, it was though I was drowning. I didn't have tons of energy, and I was becoming immune to all oral and IV antibiotics. So to what you just said, I brought in some research, lists of ideas, just things we could try. It wasn't that I was rose-colored glasses. I was well aware of my prognosis, starting at 5. So I knew what my future would look like, and it was going to be short. But I just wanted to live maybe an extra couple months, an extra year. So as you alluded to, he cut me off and said, well, don't get emotional, but I'm the expert. And if I thought it were worth trying, I'd be the one to suggest it. And then he saw the look on my face. And by the way, when you tell someone not to get emotional, you're going to get emotional. And I think he tried to almost be comforting when he said, you should feel lucky for all the extra years you had. You should feel good about that. In that moment, I just realized he'd given up on me. So I walked out of that office. I was like a ghost, and I got in my car and I broke down. These thoughts of hopelessness, fear, anger raced through my head. But that scene in the movie when you're like yelling at the main character, like Rocky Balboa, let's go. You can take on Drago. Like, get up, find another way. But that voice was coming from inside my own head. And it was saying, like, fight for yourself. You are allowed to challenge people. You are allowed to advocate for yourself. And it doesn't have to be in a negative, what's the word I'm looking for? Negative, just in a negative way, I guess. So I got home and I called every cystic fibrosis clinic I could drive to, any that would take my insurance. I just needed to know that I did everything else before I was going to accept my last breath. And a few weeks later, I walked into Dr. Patricia Walker's office in Manhattan. She read my chart, looked me in the eye, and said, listen, I can't promise anything, which I knew, but we'll try everything we can. And I won't give up on you. And for the first time, I had a doctor who believed my voice mattered just as much as theirs. And this is just a medical story. This is a leadership story. Like, whether it's an exam room or a boardroom, being dismissed feels the same.
I mean, I love that you found Dr. Walker, and I love that you didn't give up. And that struggle, that grit to what the poor leader was telling you.
Yeah.
I hope to God this guy's not practicing medicine still, because that's just, I get he tried to, sugarcoat it, but I'm like, not really the time to do that.
He has retired since.
I hope your talks helped him do that. I know we're not naming names.
We can't name names, right. I will not be getting sued.
But it is morbid to think of how many people just accept that advice when they go into a scenario like that, and you had the grit to fight and dig deep and say, you know what, like, if I have to accept it, I'll accept it, but I'm going to damn well try everything possible to make sure that I've exhausted all options.
Can I tell you why I did that? And
I would love to.
Okay. So one of the most common questions I had to ask myself, starting from probably the age of 7 or 8, when I started to really have the full effects of cystic fibrosis, I had to ask myself, what can I control right now? That question has always been my North Star. In that moment, in that parking garage, I had to pause and ask myself that question. I wasn't able to control how I was going to get to that doctor who was telling me, no, don't get emotional, but I could control getting a second opinion. Right? I couldn't control that my lungs were failing, but I could control advocating for myself to see if there could be another way. Sometimes it's not about fixing everything. It's about finding your next move. And I think within that question of what can I control right now, there's always this first thought versus second thought that happens to us when we're talking to, maybe it's leadership, or leadership is talking to other leaders, where our first thoughts are always emotional, right? They're based on past decisions. The power is in the second thought. So you are not responsible for your first thought, but you are responsible with what you do with your second. So with that first thought is just noise. That second thought is navigation. And that navigation guided me to that other doctor and gave me the strength to keep advocating for myself. Because if I just took that first thought of emotion, I was going to get emotional and say, you know what? This is my prognosis. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And advocacy isn't just a medical thing, right? It's a human thing. And I think don't accept the status quo if you're a CEO. You know, don't let the market dictate your success. Like,
right.
Take it into your control what you can control, and be the master of your own destiny.
But it's all these lessons, right? These simple lessons, I think, are human. I think when people think, well, I got to get business advice, they got to get leadership advice, it has to be some KPIs, ROIs, where I honestly think it's a lot simpler than that. It just has to be these basic questions that we ask ourselves. We will get to the answer. We are an expert in our business. We are an expert in the goal that we want to achieve, but we just need to get back to basics. Like, what can we control? Leaning on others. Being adaptable is huge. And I think business owners are pretty adaptable. And I don't think we give ourselves credit for how adaptable we are in day-to-day life.
You have to be.
Yeah.
And if you're a CEO running a multi-million-dollar company, like, and they're feeling overwhelmed, like, what's one takeaway? Like, what's one thing they can do on Monday morning that will just get them started? Or today, because it doesn't sound like we should wait till Monday morning.
No,
I'm going to reframe
you
the
woke
question.
up today, right? Yes.
You are enough.
You are enough.
What's one thing that a CEO could do today Even if it's a Sunday and you're watching this.
Even if it's a Sunday, you know what it is? I want them to be cognizant of the emotion that they bring into their company. And I'll explain. So going back to that leaning on others about how emotions are contagious, and I think emotions help create clarity for your employees and your team. There is this fascinating study that Stony Brook University did. It sounds fake, but isn't. They took sweatpad samples from 2 different groups. One went skydiving for the first time. One just ran on a treadmill. And because science is both brilliant and slightly unhinged, they had unsuspecting participants smell those sweatpads while inside an fMRI machine. Can you imagine?
Super fun.
Super fun. So what was fascinating was the participants who smelled the skydiver sweat, not knowing what it was, had the fear centers in their brain light up.
Really?
It was one of the first studies that showed emotions are contagious.
That is wild.
Fear is contagious, right? But so is calm and confidence. We set the tone for a room when we don't even mean to sometimes. And that's so important for leaders, right? And it starts in their mind by asking those simple questions before they're going to go in and address their teams.
Well, so what? That has to be a parallel when you're walking into a keynote too, because you see keynote speakers, they could give the same speech, and I think there's studies on this.
Yeah,
like they'll give them the same speech, but whoever walks in and owns the room, and they don't have to be some magnanimous person, but you feel that feeling like, oh, this is different, right?
You want to be different. And you know what's interesting? When I started to do this keynote speaking, especially going for businesses and conferences, I had this imposter syndrome, which I think everybody gets. But I was like, are my stories enough? Like, I am not, this big business person. I am just telling my life story, my lived experience, a little science-backed research that can support that. And I thought, is anybody going to listen to me? Like, are they going to see me as... It's so interesting because I think those emails about the alarms, the notes I get afterwards from the CEOs or from the conferences that hire me said one of the favorite things we loved is you talk to us like we were, in kindergarten in a way, because all of these speakers that come in, it's so high level. And that's needed, by the way, at some points, 100%. But it made me feel good to be like, wow, I am impacting this audience. I'm keeping that promise to that 5-year-old girl who thought that she would never get to be a grown-up. And for me, if one thing that audience takes away is how can I set myself up for success in the next 24 hours? How can I wake up with a purpose and not panic? Then I did my job.
I think you were born to be a keynote speaker.
You do? Thank you.
And
okay,
I think I feel like you've run enterprise level businesses over and over again. So you're a great guest. And I'm glad you brought it back to the 5-year-old, because when you're a 5-year-old, and I don't want the spoiler alert, so we'll mention things like Tahiti. You can watch the TED Talk and you'll know what that means.
Yeah, you got to watch it.
You went to Disney World. Mm-hmm. So where would you go now? Like since you had the Disney World, and I believe you went to Tahiti. Mm-hmm. Where would you go now?
Maybe I went to Tahiti.
Maybe
I didn't.
Oh,
that's a great question. I don't want to give the spoiler alert, but it would be Tahiti.
Okay.
But you got to watch why. You have to watch why. ...
Correct. Okay. So you'll learn about Tahiti in more than one way, and then we'll put that part on Instagram. But
and if you were the Tahiti Tourism Board and want us and sponsor us to do a podcast in Tahiti, we are in. So Tahiti, this is for you. That's who we got to contact.
Right. Tahiti, we are enough. So... All right. Well, if people want to hire you, or they just want to follow you just because your dynamic personality is very engaging, where can people find you? Where's the best spot? Best
spot is LinkedIn. Okay. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn and sharing also my website, erinmark.com. Or please shoot me an email. It's erin@erinmark.com.
Okay. How many Erin Marks are there?
Good question. Well, on my Instagram, I'm the Erin Mark.
Okay.
Not that I think I'm the one, but Erin Mark was taken. So I haven't done that data. I told you I don't like data, but we can try to find it. How many Erin Marks
Okay. Well, look, I always ask that question just because I have a very common name and there's a billion of me.
Yeah. You have two first names.
I have a lot of first names.
My husband has 2 first names as well because he's Ryan Mark.
He's not Mark Mark? Right.
Mark. His dad was Marty Mark.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
What a name.
Marty Mark. Shout out to you.
Shout out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I love that Erin Mark came on, erinmark.com. You can see the Erin Mark on Instagram or find her among the Erin Marks on LinkedIn. We'll put all of this on the screen. Erin, thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I would love to have you I feel like you're a better host than I am. So please come back and you have the energy.
I would love to come back.
You live 10 minutes up the road, you said. So
I will be here every week. Thank you. No.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, business is not just about making money. The CEO that'll win over the next decade is the one who builds trust, who listens well, who advocates for their team and themselves, and creates organizations that will thrive. Thanks for tuning in to my favorite episode of GTM Get the Money. Have a great day. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me.
We gon'